Welcome to another edition of Mayor's Monday on WSAU.com. For the first time, we join Mayor Brent Jacobson of the city of Mosinee. How are you, Mr. Mayor?
I'm doing well. Thank you for coming today.
No problem. Thank you for making some time for us. This is the first time I've ever been to your city hall, so it was
Welcome.
right off Main Street. I had no problems finding it, and I enjoyed that. Let's start with something that we had a little bit of experience with this past spring. So you ran unopposed for your second term as mayor of Mosinee, but the school board did not have as much luck. The school district, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on who you are, did not get the funding that they were looking for from their referendum. So their facilities they had a plan for how to kind of redo the school, redo a couple of other things, but they're not able to do that now, and now they kind of have to go back to the drawing board. As the mayor of the city, I realize you're not directly linked to the school board, you're not on the school board in any way, but did you have any kind of conversations with them during that process of when they were trying to come up with, well, how do we get people to actually approve this? And does it kind of put you in a bit of an awkward spot? Do you feel like you should have a voice in that decision? Or not that decision, but do you feel like you should be able to influence people to maybe vote yes or no on that referendum? Or do you think that's something you should stay out of?
Well, I will say this, and answer your first question as to whether I had any involvement. I didn't have any direct involvement. That being said, I did talk with the school a little bit on thoughts as to how to inform the public as to the particulars of what they wanted to do. And I think the school district did a tremendous job on that. They had an article in our Mosinee Times every week. And I know the superintendent, of course, personally, from being the mayor and working with the school district, and certainly have talked to her. And my suggestion from my own experience in running for mayor in a community of this size was residents really appreciate, and frankly, you get your best ideas and you get your best criticisms by going door to door. And so I made an effort the first time I ran, and again this time, even though I was unopposed, I start in January and I work till April on the weekends, and I try and hit every door in the city. And you talk to residents of all different perspectives, and this time around, since the school district item was the biggest item on our ballot, I certainly fielded a lot of questions about that, and tried to answer them the best I could. So, but it's a significant challenge for us. In terms of whether I think I should have some influence on it, it's sort of a double-edged sword from a mayor's perspective. On the one hand, passage of the referendum significantly increases property tax burden, and I know it increases it on people that frankly can't afford it, that especially senior citizens. On the flip side, we are a community that needs to encourage younger people that want to start a family to move here, to take up homes that are being vacated by older people that are transitioning out of a home living situation. And we want those people to fix those homes up, increase property values, and that's something that's difficult to do if you don't have a strong school district that they can send their children to. So there's sort of the long-term picture there. So from a mayor's perspective, I wouldn't say awkward, but it's a difficult situation to be in, because it's a tough call to make as to what side of the argument you want to place yourself on. I think a middle of the road approach is good. I think we need to fix some things in our school, but be conservative at the same time.
You mentioned raising your property values, and a lot of that, economic development is something that a lot of municipalities around central Wisconsin are focusing on pretty heavily. You know, Wausau is trying to update their East Riverfront. They've got that whole project that they're doing underway now. Wisconsin Rapids is doing something very similar with their riverfront and shopping around for different suitors for different pieces of land. So my question to you is, what is Mosinee doing on that front, if anything?
To increase our property values, well, it's sort of twofold. We're doing a number of things. I think what's helped us the most in terms of increasing our tax base and getting projects done and revitalizing our community has been tax increment financing, which people refer to as TIF. TIF is something that when I came into politics and was starting to learn about municipal issues so I could become an educated candidate, I was a bit skeptical of TIF. But I'm one of its biggest advocates now that I've been in office and seen what it can do when managed properly. In a nutshell, for those who don't know, you create a tax district, its geographic boundary of blighted property or an industrial park, and you freeze the tax rate in that year, and you split your taxes on that tax rate with the school district, the county, and the tech school based on that rate for the next 20, 25 years. Any increases in property value over that time are 100% kept by the city to be used specifically for development in that district. As a result of that, we have significantly improved our business park, and we started a TIF district in our downtown trying to revitalize what is really a historic downtown. And small downtowns are dying these days with big box retail, strip malls, that kind of stuff. So ours, we're in a process of trying to revitalize it with TIF. And one thing I did very early when I came into the job is we formed a revenue sharing with our business park TIF. And our business park TIF, which is doing tremendous but will expire in the near future, has excess revenue that we can share with our downtown TIF to revitalize it. We've seen multiple storefront improvements downtown since that's happened. We're working on closely with a brewery on the corner that will become hopefully a brewery and tap house, which is popular these days. And we're also working on simply building up the infrastructure in our business park. We've repaved numerous roads out there so that when we bring in new prospects and they see fresh asphalt, that's a place they want to do business. Now, by making those things strong, we offer our residents jobs that they can have right here, good manufacturing jobs. I've toured factories out in our business park and been fortunate enough to see people I graduated high school with great manufacturing jobs living right here in our city. So those are things we've done with TIF financing to make a strong business park, revitalize our downtown, and make people just want to live and work here and fix up their own home.
So you're from Mosinee then?
Yep, I was born here. My mother still lives in the same house that I grew up in, and except for when I went away to school and worked a short amount of time out of state, I moved back in 2011 and I've been here ever since.
Okay.
So, 2002 graduate, Mosinee High School.
So then you have a frame of reference for the city, even though you've only been mayor for 2 years now.
Yeah, it's sort of obviously Mosinee has a big place in my heart. And as a young kid, my father was actually mayor in the 1990s and served on the city council here. And so I watched that generation work to build up our community, and it's like I said, it's got a big place in my heart, and I care deeply about it.
Okay. So if you don't mind me asking, so class of 2002, so how old are you now?
I just had my 33rd birthday. 33rd.
So. I placed you somewhere in there, 32, 33.
Yep.
So what made you want to get into this? I'm not to put any kind of slight against anybody, but you don't see many people your age get into politics, at least on this local level.
You don't, and I'm glad you finished with that comment, because that's a concern I have for my generation. Shortly after I took over, I met with the young professionals group in Wausau, and they're always searching. How do we become more involved in our community? How do we stop the brain drain to larger cities of our young professionals? And I get really concerned because in these smaller communities, and then even worse when you get into townships, small townships, that enthusiasm just isn't there for younger people to run for office. And that being said, younger people have a lot going on these days. I mean, they're trying to raise kids. They're running them all over to soccer games and baseball games, and they probably just don't have the time. So I hope that we see that come back as those people get older. What made me want to do it is, when I moved back in 2011, the last thing on my mind was running for office. I just wanted to raise a family here in central Wisconsin, where I grew up. I have a full-time law practice, but I saw so much more potential in our community. Having grown up here and seen the transitions that took place, I just felt that things were stagnant, and that it was maybe time for a breath of fresh air.
Okay. My last question for you, what would you say have been the difficulties of the job so far as maybe dealing with other organizations? Or I'm not saying that you now have to be like, well, I hate these people. But, obviously there are some roadblocks. Have you run into a few?
Certainly you always have some of your battles. I've run into a few just differences of opinion on where to go with things, but I think the biggest challenge that I've run into as mayor is trying to figure out how to pay for things. Local governments. I'm concerned, as I'm sure a lot of mayors are, that local governments are strapped for cash. They're strapped for revenue resources, and local control is sort of disappearing. The biggest problem I think we're all facing right now is how we're going to fund our transportation. And I'm sure that's been a topic you've heard from others. And my concern is, I don't see a plan right now. I just see a divide. And, the plans that have been out there, when you're talking about, for instance, raising 7 cents a gallon at the pump, if the response from people like the governor's office, for instance, is, well, that's going to cost Wisconsin taxpayers at the pump millions. Well, that's political hocus pocus. 7 cents at the pump for me, for instance, I have a 14-gallon car, I think that's what it is when it's on empty and I fill it up. And that's 98 cents, so that's $52 a year. For me, I pay another $52 a year to stop hitting potholes all over the place. But I think the state's going to have to find a way to direct that money to local governments that have more control over it. Otherwise, small communities like mine are just funding Milwaukee projects. And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges we all face here in central Wisconsin. We're all concerned about it, regardless of which side of the political aisle you fall on as a mayor. So.
Okay. Well, that's all I got for you today, Mr.
That's
Jacobson. It went by pretty quick.
It did. We could talk for hours. I hope you have the time to maybe stop back and visit us again, continue the conversation.
Yep, we'll check back with you soon.
Great. Thank you.